here's what I read in the month of February. In the month of February, I read 7 books and 1,961 pages. That's a lot. I'm going to start by showing you all the books I read, and then I'm going to give you a synopsis on whether or not you should read them too. I'm going to start with all the fiction books I read first. I read a lot of Christian romance. I read a lot of Christian mystery / suspense with a little bit of a romance plot in there. Yeah, let's get started. The first book I read in February was The Chance by Karen Kingsbury. This book literally, from the half on, I read it in one sitting. I could not put it down. It was so good. It starts in the past. Starts with 2 of our main characters, and they grew up best friends and had a love for each other but never really pronounced it until one day she had to move away. And when she had to move away, they chose to go under their favorite tree and write letters to each other for like 15 years in the future, I think, for like one last chance at their love. And it follows the story of the 2 main characters, the guy and the girl, and there's a lot of themes of coming to faith and then kind of drifting off from faith. Super, super highly recommend. I gave this book 4 stars. It literally was so good. I would say the start is like a little bit slow, but then, like I said, like half on, I sat and I read it in literally one sitting. My next one is One Little Lie by Colleen Coble. This is the start of a 3-part series. I have the other 2, which I may or may not be reading them this month, or they might be on my TBR, but we'll see. This book follows the story of Jane Hardy. She has recently been promoted to chief of their police force in their small town, and a film document shooter guy came to town to like film her as a female chief, and he has some secrets of his own as well. And she replaced her dad as chief of police. Her dad is retired, and there's also a little bit of there's a lot of bit of cult stuff going on. Her and her dad left a cult, and she's searching for her mother and who didn't leave the cult. So yeah, it's very, very cool. And basically the title goes off of a one little lie that her father told that changes a lot of the story. So this one I also gave 4 stars. It is so good. Obviously it's a part of a series, so it's not going to be incredibly like quick paced or anything, but I felt like even on its own it was such a good book. The next book I read this February was The Screwtape Letters. Well, I had heard a lot about this book, and C.S. Lewis is obviously like one of the most famous writers ever, Christian writers specifically. This book is so good. It gives such an insight into spiritual warfare and spiritual forces in the world that are against Christians. It's basically written from the perspective of Screwtape. He is like a head demon, and he is writing to his nephew who has been given a human as his like project. He's giving his nephew tactics that he should use, ways that you can pull someone from God. It's a really deep read. It's very thin. It took me a while to get through though, just because you really sit and you just chew on each of the different letters. I gave Screwtape Letters 4.5 stars because it is such a 5-star read. It really is. But sometimes in my head, I'm like, I just want to not have to sit and chew on the words, if that makes sense. Sometimes I just want to like flow, but for this, it's like you want to sit and chew on them. And so that's the only reason why it's 4.5. Other than that, literally incredible right here. The next 2 books that I read are both also by Colleen Coble. They are both a part of her Annie Peterson novels. There's a 3rd one coming out actually on my birthday in July. I am so impatient. I really want it to come out like right now, but that's okay. So it starts with The Edge of Dusk. This story follows the life of Annie Peterson, and Annie is a law enforcement ranger, and like when she was super young, her sister got kidnapped and they were together, and she like couldn't save her sister, so she has tons of guilt with that. So now in her current role, she continues to try and like find her sister and figure out that mystery. Consistently throughout the story, there are so many different plots about different crimes, and it's so interesting because one thing will happen, it won't get solved, and then in like this book, it will get solved. solved, and then I assume what didn't get solved in this book is gonna get solved in the third. In my head, I go back, I'm like, what am I still wondering? What do I not know yet? So then I can like try and like predict things, and it's like, even knowing all those, so difficult to predict. I mean, I was shocked so many times in both of these. I really love that I can't think of what's going on, predict, and then ruin the story for myself. And another big part of both of these books is her past love interest comes back to town, and they had a whole like messy, rocky situation going on, and he comes back to town, and at first she's like, why are you here? Like, scooch, I don't want you in my life. But it ends up being really good. And so yeah, both of these I gave 4 stars because they're just so good. And I feel like once I read the third and kind of everything like ties together in a bow, I'm gonna be like, this whole series is 5 for sure. But right now I'm like, there's still unknowns. There's things I don't know. There's things I'm still wondering about. So definitely get these, and maybe don't start until July when the third is out, because you're gonna want to read it right away. Now on to my nonfiction reads for the month. I read 2 nonfiction books. I read Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Duggar. Bulo. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, to be honest. But this book, oh my goodness, it was so good. I saw an Instagram like reel about an interview from this and just had some like excerpts of it, and it's all about her story of disentangling faith from fear, and all about Bill Gothard's teachings, which if you ever watch the Duggars, his teachings are who they follow. So Ginger has since moved to LA with her husband, has a couple kids, and touches on some like really awesome topics about what she learned as a child versus how scripturally that's wrong, and how she's learned to separate those ideas, and how she's still working through issues that Bill Gothard's teaching caused in her faith. She gives a lot of insight into her upbringing and different details about why they did certain things, and how filming the show affected her and affected all of her teachings, and how she saw her fans, XYZ. So this one, really good. The last book I read for the month was a lesser known book, I'd say, but it's called The Path Towards Passion by Dean Troon. It has 9 different disciplines that you can use and implement into your life to grow in your faith. It is such an easy read. It's super thin and it flows super well. He describes each of the 9 disciplines individually, and describes how he applies them in his life, and describes different examples of how to apply them in your life. It's all scripturally backed, so seriously, awesome book. Great for starting your walk with God, trying to figure out, how do I even do this? How do I read my Bible? What are different things that I could be doing to grow closer to God? Highly recommend this book for anyone new to their faith, or anyone who has been following Christ for a while but just wants maybe a revamp of their disciplines, and just want to grow closer to God in this way. So highly recommend. So these are all of my February book reads. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys go and pick up some of these and try them out for yourself. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye! Is that even like transition that anybody wants to see?